Welcome to our online Hatha Yoga and Kundalini Yoga classes at Four Directions Yoga Studio in Woodville. This is my yoga companion, Yogi Betty. She'll be with us today. Today we're going to do a Hatha Yoga class for lower back and the hips. I hear from people during this time of self-isolation, social distancing, that people are feeling tension and restriction and tightness in their lower back and hips because they've been sitting a lot. So we're going to practice some stretches today. So we're going to start either with sitting or lying down. Make sure you're comfortable. If you're lying down, you might want a blanket or something under the back of your head. And then if you're sitting, you may want to sit on a cushion and start with just noticing the position of your head. You can drop your chin towards your chest, either sitting or lying down, and let your neck release by taking your head from side to side. Come into a place where you can feel that your neck is relaxed. And then we're going to pay attention to the movement of breath. So take your time and inhale into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. Breathing diaphragmatically, breathe into the belly and breathe into the pelvis. And then as you exhale, let your belly sink back. Take your time, notice your breath. Your eyes can be open or closed. Feel the movement of your inhalation and exhalation breath. If it's difficult to breathe through your nose, then breathe through your mouth. Alternatively, some people find it helpful to inhale through their nose deeply and fully, and then exhale deeply and fully through their mouth. In either case, when you inhale, make sure that your belly fills with breath and comes forward, and that as you exhale, the belly sinks back. Diaphragmatic breathing is very important in yoga. It's a released breath. It also helps stimulate the parasympathetic, the stress release response in our nervous system. And it releases tension from the internal tissues of the body. It also allows us to see how far into the body we can breathe. Because when we can breathe and feel breath movement in the pelvis or our shoulders, that means those internal tissues are releasing. So take a few more breaths. Deeply inhale to the belly, ribs, chest, and deeply exhale. Enjoy the sensations of your breath. Being aware of the breath and the body can bring us into the present moment. It pulls our attention into ourselves, away from things that might distract us, sap our energy, and cause us stress. So take your time deeply inhaling and exhaling. And then we're all going to come to line on the floor. So if you're sitting, then come to line on the floor on the back body. And we'll start with the knees bent and feet on the floor. And your hands can be on your front body or they can be out to your sides. And we're just going to gently let the legs drop from side to side. So as both knees drop to one side, let's say both knees go to the right, take a breath and let them release. Sometimes we'll move too quickly and we'll move in yoga as if we were trying to get to the end of the practice. But there's no end to the practice because our yoga practice can extend beyond this class. So as both knees are on the left, you let the right knee go back to the right and the left leg will follow. So that the legs really fall apart. This is very important for releasing tension. It takes a lot of effort on the inner thighs and groins to keep our legs together, and we're trying to let that go. So just go back and forth here a couple more times, line on the back body. You have all the time in the world to do this. There is nowhere to go. Sometimes our body is resting, but our mind is still spinning. And that's what happens when we feel we have to move quickly, especially in yoga class. And then we'll try the same kind of activity, drawing the knees to the chest here, letting the knees move to release the pelvis. And you can feel the back of the pelvis on the ground in big circles. You can move the pelvis, the back of the pelvis on the ground in big circles. Instead of thinking about moving our knees, we're thinking about the back of the pelvis and feeling it. And then change directions. I change directions, you can change directions here. And then you can see that you can let your knees drop to the right with your knees into the chest. And then as you exhale, you can let the left leg come back to the center. The right leg will follow, and you can take both knees to the left. The closer our legs are to the arms, into the more of a stretch and release we might feel in the mid-back and the upper back. This is fairly challenging if our back is very stiff, and you may need to bring your knees further away. Take a few more rounds of little boat twist. This is called little boat twist. Inhaling, exhaling. Really remember to not hold your inhalation breath. Let the breath release. And then we'll bring the feet back to the floor, knees bent, feet on the floor. And you can bring your feet a little wider than hip width and then drop your knees to the side. Exhaling, take your legs to the other direction. Betty is readjusting herself, and then we'll inhale, exhale, and drop again. And you may feel a stretch along the front of the thigh and the hip flexor area here. And just keep going from side to side. And then come back to the center, and we can take the right leg over the left and drop your legs here again from side to side. Remember to wait on the side and to let your legs release the heaviness of the body, releasing itself. In this practice, we use our body's own weight to release itself. So with the legs crossed, right leg over the left, and you take your knees from side to side here. It will feel different going to the left. This is not a symmetrical posture. And then we come back, we'll change the leg that's on top and take the left leg on top, and we'll go back and forth again. Remember to wait on the side and take 2 or 3 breaths. Sometimes when our mind is very busy and agitated, that agitation will be reflected in the body and manifest in the body and in our nervous system, and we'll want to rush through everything. I always say more advanced yoga students move more slowly because we take the time, we can be more present to the body, and we can feel it more deeply. So take your time, go back and forth a couple more times. Sometimes there'll be a posture that we're practicing where you feel you need to linger and you want to stay there and just feel the body releasing. And it releases in layers. And it releases with the breath. And it releases with gravity. And coming back the next time, and then we can bring the feet back to the floor. And then we can take the right thigh across again, the right ankle on the left thigh. So you can bring your right foot, right ankle on the left thigh. And this might be all you do in this posture. This is called keyhole. You must be mindful of the right knee here. If possible, you draw your knees to your chest and bring your hands around the left thigh. And then you can inhale and let the leg release a little bit. And exhale and let the leg come back. And inhale and allow it to release. And exhale and draw the leg back. Some people also like to circle a bit or take their leg from side to side. And then we can change legs. So we'll take the left ankle, on the right thigh, and be mindful of your left knee here. And this might be all you do. You can also let the legs move a little bit from side to side here with the right foot on the ground, or if possible, bring your hands around the back of your right thigh. And as you inhale, you can let your leg release. Exhale, draw your leg in. Take a few moments here. Allow the stretch in the left hip. And as you inhale, release. And again, be mindful of the left knee. If the hip is very, very tight, Sometimes when we're trying to stretch our hip and it doesn't release, we'll pull on the knee instead. Inhale, releasing, exhale, and deepen. And then release the legs, and take the legs up and shake them out, and then bring them back to the floor. And I have a yoga belt here. Sometimes we have yoga belts at home. Sometimes you can use an old necktie or the belt on a bathrobe. And we're going to start with drawing the right knee into the chest and circle the right knee a little bit and the hip. One of the great things about Hatha Yoga is it brings movements and stretches into the body that we don't normally do day to day, and so that releases tension, lubricates the joints, and stretches muscles. So we're going to take the belt on our right foot and see about lengthening into the right leg. And if this is really strong, you can inhale and bend the right knee and exhale and stretch the leg. If your lower back is sensitive, you might keep your left foot on the floor. If your back is okay, you can stretch it out into the room. That is up to you. Inhaling deeply, exhale, you can take your leg over to the right. And then you can inhale and exhale, take the belt with your left hand, let your right arm rest on the ground, and take your right leg over to the left. And just as before, when we were doing little bow twist and the knee drops with feet on the floor, take your time. The body moving slowly helps our mind start to slow down. So we work in yoga practice with the body and mind. We work through the body. Take your leg back to the right. In my case, it's to the Yogi Betty side. Inhaling, exhale, and take your leg back across the front to the left. And you let your right shoulder drop back. If our back is very, very tight, there might be a tendency for us to careen over to the left, and that's okay. It's also an additional benefit, though, to the body, to the front of the shoulder and to the spine, to let the right arm sink back. And we'll come back to the center again and take a breath in the middle. And then we'll bring the right leg down. Before you take the left knee to the chest, just feel the right leg and the left leg after that stretch. Quite often the right leg will feel longer from the lower back through the hip to the heel. And then we'll come back to feet on the floor. We'll draw the left knee to the chest. Circle your left knee. Allow the hip to move. And then we'll take the belt on the left foot. And we'll inhale, exhale, and lengthen up. And you can keep your right foot on the floor, right knee bent, if your lower back is sensitive. Or if you're comfortable with your lower back, you can stretch your right leg into the room. And as you inhale, you can bend the left knee, and you exhale, you can stretch the left leg, and you can try that a few times. Sometimes it's impossible to straighten the left leg, and if you want to try, just hold more belt. Your leg might be down here, and that's fine. It's such a benefit to the leg to elongate. And then you can hold your belt with your left hand and take your left leg over to the left. Inhale and exhale, release into the left leg. Breathing back to the center, we can bring the left leg across the front of the body over to the right. And let the left arm sink back to the floor. Again, it might be a tendency to fall over to the side here to the right. You do get a benefit of lengthening through the collarbones, of releasing the back in a really beautiful twist when you keep it over. And then back to the center and to the left. When we come back to the center, you might try a bit of inhaling and exhale bending. And if you find that there's a stretch, one of these postures where you want to linger a little bit and let the muscle of the pelvis, the leg release, then take your time. It's very important in this practice of our Hatha Yoga practice based on mindfulness to stay with the sensations of your body and to feel them. And when you're in a stretch and you hold it for a little bit up, as long as it feels comfortable to you, then you can feel your muscles releasing. And then after that, we'll take the left leg back to the floor and we'll bring our belt down and feel the right and left leg on the ground, the back of the pelvis. And one of the benefits of Hatha yoga practice in this style is that when we really release to the ground afterwards, we truly drop and feel that connection and support. And then we're going to bend the knees and bring the feet to the floor, hip width apart, and inhale into the belly, ribs, chest, deeply and fully. And as you exhale, let the belly sink back. And when we breathe deeply, you might notice that the action of the breath starts the hips to move in a bit of a pelvic swing. So without doing or forcing or striving for the movement, we might notice that as we inhale, the pelvis tilts, and as we exhale, it turns under, without us making it happen. That's the beauty of moving slowly and of releasing tension and of breathing deeply. So if we ride that movement of the pelvis as we exhale, we drop down through the feet and ground. And as we ground through the feet, we lift the pelvis up, the lower back, the middle back, and we come up onto the shoulders. The arms can be overhead. This is one of my favorite arm positions in bridge pose. And then as we exhale, we can release and come down in the opposite way. So you can feel your spine and pelvis move part by part off the floor as you come up onto the shoulders. And then you can inhale and exhale and release and come back down part by part, bit by bit. And then you can go up and down at your own pace here. You may try a different arm position. Allow yourself to experiment with different hand positions, arm positions for bridge pose, which is a good counter pose after those postures we've just done. And then you can draw your knees back to your chest and circle the back of the pelvis again on the floor. You can move your knees together or one at a time. So you can move your left knee and circle it, then the right knee, or you can move them both together. And you can change the direction. And then we're going to turn to the side and come up, and we'll come into cat pose. So in cat pose, you can exhale and round the spine up, and inhale and release down. And I tend not to lift my neck up very high in cat pose because I find it's fairly tight. So I just try to let it release. The weight of the head releases the neck. And inhale, releasing, and exhale, and let the spine round up. And then we can take the hands over to the right and see about sitting the hips back. If that's hard on your knees, then don't go so far back. And breathe into the left side ribs and stretch the left arm away. And then exhaling up into cat pose on the side and inhaling. And then walk your hands back and all the way over to the left and sit your hips back and breathe and stretch into the right hand, the right side ribs. Deeply inhale and exhale. And then round the spine up on the left and dip down. Again, if this is something that you want to practice and repeat on the other side, following the sensations of the body, then do. We're going to come into downward facing dog posture. So inhale deeply, exhale, take the hips back, and use your legs to lift the hips. And then you can alternate the knees. You can bend the right knee and stretch the left leg, and bend the left knee and stretch the right. You can take one leg up if that's possible, and if you can't hold it very long, bring it down. You might just lift one foot off the floor. If possible, you can bring the leg all the way up. Deep inhale and exhale. Bring ourselves down again. And then child's pose. I'm going to use this other mat now so you can see it from the side. Child's pose is knees together, feet together, and then you sit the hips back and let your head drop. That's not possible for a lot of people. You need to separate the knees and then come forward And you might support your head with your hands. Okay, and then let your head drop, inhaling deeply and exhale. And the interesting aspect of this posture is just to see where breath goes in the body. If we ask ourselves, where am I breathing now? Now we're paying attention to the body. Our attention is drawn in. And we have a moment of paying mindful attention. So we're going to practice lunge pose, which is where the front of the thigh is psoas. I'm taking the right foot forward here. And the left thigh is an extension. You can take your left toes under and exhale back into the left foot. And then bring the left knee to the floor. This might be enough for you to do. You might feel this is where your maximum is and you need to stay here. If that's, with your hands on the floor, and that's fine. If possible, you can see about coming into upright lunge, but remember to exhale and drop the pelvis. Keep the lower back releasing. You see about bringing your arms up. Take a couple of breaths. Deep inhales and exhales. And then bringing your hands down. You can try reverse lunge, which is you start to straighten out this front leg. And I find if my heel is down and toes are up and I drop my head, this is more of a stretch on the hamstring. If I drop the foot down, it seems to me to be more of a stretch to the ankle and the front of the shin. Both are important. Coming back, we'll take the left foot forward. I can show you from the front this time. Inhale, exhale, bring the left foot forward and allow the stretch to come into the right thigh and hip flexors. And then you can take your right toes under and exhale and elongate back into your right leg. And then if possible, bring your right knee to the floor. And you can have your hands on the floor. They can stay there. If you're maxed in that posture, you might be able to come up into upright lunge pose. Deeply inhale and exhale into the pelvis. And maybe bring your arms up. And then coming back down again. We'll come back. You can see about cat pose again. And if you want to try downward facing dog pose, try downward dog again, bringing the knees off the floor. So another great stretch for the hips and for our lower back is pigeon pose. And one way of practicing that, this one is another one where you must be mindful of your knees. You bring your right knee to your right wrist. If possible, angle your right foot in front of your left hip slightly, and then slide your left leg back, and you bring your hands to the floor, and arms and head to the floor. Pigeon as a forward bend, and then breathe into the pelvis. If that is really uncomfortable on your knee, you come out immediately. You sit on the floor with your feet on the floor, your feet hip width apart. Drop your knees to the right, bring your left hand over, and this is called pinwheel. It's a very good alternative to pigeon if you have sensitive knees. So if your knees are okay, you can be in pigeon as a forward bend. And then the back bend version is to come up in the upright posture, which releases the right hip and the front of the left thigh. Coming out of pigeon on the right, we'll come into pigeon on the left. So if your left knee is sensitive, sit with your feet on the floor again, drop your knees to the left, bring your hands over, and let your head drop and neck release. If your knee is okay, you can bring your left knee to your wrist, angle the foot across in front of the right hip, and then drop forward. Breathe into the pelvis, into your lower back, into your upper back, and let your head drop. Deeply inhale and deeply exhale. And if that's okay, you can see about coming into upright pigeon pose. Breathing to the pelvis again, and then we'll come out of that posture, and then we can try cat pose. Down. Rounding the head up, rounding the spine up and exhaling, dropping your head and dipping down. We'll try lunge again. We're going to bring the right foot forward, and you can keep your hands on the floor and breathe into the left thigh, into the front of the left hip. A lot of low back pain is related to tension in the hip flexor muscle at the front of the thigh. You have to go very slowly, and if you're really in discomfort with your back, you may need to see a medical professional to get a proper diagnosis. So another variation of lunge is twisting. You can bring your left hand to the floor and turn to the right. And then coming back, put the right foot back, and then bring the left foot forward. Inhaling deeply and exhale. You just might want to stay with both hands on the floor. Breathing into the front of the right thigh, the back leg. Coming up if you can into upright lunge, possibly bringing the arms up. Another 2 or 3 breaths here. See if you can feel your pelvis move. You can breathe through your mouth, your nose, and then you can bring your hands down and turn toward the left leg. And then we'll bring the hands back. And then we can come, I'll show you on the side mat here, downward facing dog pose to stretch back. And then see about upward dog. Inhale deeply. Exhale, round the spine up towards the ceiling and come forward. The pelvis comes down a little bit, the chest comes forward. Inhale deeply. Exhale back into down dog. If upward dog is not possible, be in downward facing dog pose. Exhale, draw the belly back, come forward a little bit, and then go back to down dog. Don't limit yourself by thinking you can't do a posture. If you can't do the full pose, you can do something from the posture. And then we'll release back into child's pose, and you can bring your hands to your sides. If possible, if that bothers your neck, keep your arms forward. Releasing. Another very good posture for the pelvis and lower back is squatty posture, Malasana in Sanskrit. You take your toes under, and I teach it this way. We start off in cat pose. You bring your toes under. Walk your hands back. For a lot of people, this is what we can do. The full pose might be uncomfortable on the knees, and this might be where you feel the most secure and you get the best benefit. If you can, then you come back into B pose, Malasana posture, and you let your knees drop apart a little bit and your body drop in between. Your heels might not come to the ground, they might be here. A lot of people can do B pose, but they have to start from standing. And then they inhale and exhale and slowly ease themselves down. Be mindful of how their knees feel. And they come part way down. They might need a block in front of their hands. If they can't come all the way forward, they feel they need this extra support, that's fine. This practice is not about doing the posture in a complete way. This is much more about feeling the body released with the breath, with grounding, being aware of your own reactions to the posture, and the movement in and out of postures is as important as the pose itself. So we're a dynamic yoga practice in the sense that we look at and explore the movement in and out of the poses as much as we explore the poses themselves. Makes yoga much more interesting and vast. Then we'll try standing forward bend. If this is problematic for your lower back, you can pop your elbows up onto your knees and let your head drop. You can do a standing forward bend with the knees bent and let the lower back release. If possible, you can straighten your legs. Inhale deeply here and exhale, let the belly sink back and take your time. You might go back to bending your knees and exploring straightening the legs. You might need this block again. And then we're going to exhale, bend the knees, and release up to standing. Walk your arms up your legs if you need to, and we'll stretch up and back. And then release. Standing postures are excellent for the pelvis and the lower back as well. We're only going to do 2 really a mountain pose, a simple standing posture. And it's important posture to feel the balance between the feet. Sometimes one foot will feel tighter than the other. We might feel that we stand on one side of our body a lot more than we stand on the other side. If we've had or have a knee injury on that side, we might not be putting much weight into that side of the body and then compensating, and that can cause other problems. So just see if you can feel that you can stand equally on both feet, dropping your awareness into the soles of the feet and into the ground. And we're going to practice wide stride standing forward bend. So we're going to separate the feet about one of your own leg lengths apart. Bring the outer edges of the feet parallel to the outer edges of the mat. We're actually going to start with a variation of standing, bending to the side, of side bending, here for the hips and the pelvis. And then come back to the center and one more time to the right. Inhale and exhale, and one more time to the left. And then come back to the center, and then see about dropping forward. Again, if you need a block, a cushion, take whatever you need. And dropping forward to the ground. Inhale deeply and exhale and breathe into the pelvis and into the hips. In this practice, in this pose, we definitely are using gravity to help us bend forward. You can walk your hands over to the right. Let your head drop. Take a few breaths. Feel the stretch in the back of the pelvis and your right leg. You can walk your hands over to the left. And then you can come back to the center. And then I like this foot walking. Heel, toes back to the center. We'll bend the knees, exhale, and come up and stretch up and back. We haven't done much for the upper body yet. This class is focusing on the lower back and the pelvis, but for the arms, we can do the spinning movement for the arms. Our bodies will tell us what we need to do when we're listening to them. That's how yoga sequences are developed. People practice yoga and they feel that, one part of the body is stretched out and released and another part of the body needs more movement. We can do arm circles one at a time, forward and back and forward. All, movements to energize us and release tension. Okay, then we're going to come into sitting again to move my pillow. Yogi Betty doesn't mind too much. And another few postures for the hips and the lower back. We can bring our soles of our feet together. You definitely may want to sit on a cushion for this. If you have something going on in your knee and it doesn't feel comfortable in this posture, support that side with a block or a cushion. And then this is butterfly pose, and we can see about twisting to the right here and take 1 or 2 breaths. And then we can inhale and exhale and turn to the left. Come back to the center and then see about dropping forward. And wherever you drop to is fine. This is a strong stretch on the inner thighs, and so sometimes just dropping our head is what we need to do. You might be able to come forward a little bit and breathe here, inhaling and exhaling. And then we'll come up, come back to the center with the legs, stretch the legs out in wide stride sitting posture. And we can see about taking the arms up, turning a little bit to the left, and bring the right arm down and the left arm over in a twist. Long, deep inhale and exhale. And then coming up, we take the left arm towards the left leg and the right arm over. And wherever you are in this posture is fine. Remember, these movements are unusual for us to do on a day-to-day basis, so they always expand our range of motion, release tension, and stress from the body. Full wide stride sitting pose is very difficult for some of us. I like to introduce it to people with feet on the floor, knees bent, and then dropping over your thighs. so that the forward bend in the hip here is actually quite deep when the knees are bent, and that's the goal of this posture. So you can see, if you can feel, as you inhale, the body might lift a bit, and as you exhale, it can drop. And it might lift as you inhale and drop as you exhale. And then you can see about if that's comfortable and you can feel that breath movement. You can try starting to let your legs straighten out, but always feeling for that breath movement. And then we'll come up. Okay, so another few movements to try is crossing the legs here in easy pose, and that's the name of it. It certainly might not be easy. This is one variation of a hip stretch where you can drop forward, which might be dropping the head. If you can drop forward at your hips, do, and then see where your breath is. Deeply breathing into the pelvis, into the hips, even if you're just sitting with your head folded, drop forward. And then we're going to change the leg that's in front, bring the other leg in front, and then try dropping forward again. Wherever you come to. And then we're going to come back up again and stretch the legs out and shake your legs out. Some people love this posture of a twist, and it can move into another hip stretch called cow's head posture. I'm going to take the feet on the floor, bring the left foot beside your right hip, under the right leg, and bring the right foot across. So this is the twist, and for some of us this is where we are, and that's perfectly fine. And then you can turn to the right. If possible, keep this left foot moving a little bit over to, the right foot moving over to the left. Try twisting again. And then maybe bring your left foot all the way around so the sole of the left foot is facing the wall behind you. This is cow's head posture, and then try dropping forward. Deeply inhaling and exhaling and releasing. Coming up again. If you can't do that full posture that I just did, maybe you're here in this posture and you can drop forward here and breathe. That's just as important as bringing your foot over. And we have to be always inclusive in our yoga practice for ourselves and when we're teaching for other people. So we're back to this beginning posture. We're going to bring the right foot now under the left leg and have the right foot beside the left hip. And then we can see about twisting. And then if possible, you bring the right foot over, the left foot over to the right, and then try twisting again. You might find that you inhale and come out, and exhale and move in. And then coming out, and then if you can, you bring the left foot over to the right with the sole of the left foot facing the wall behind you. And then you see about dropping forward and feeling your breath as you inhale and exhale here. Breathing, wherever you come to is important. Your joints may only let you come this far. And then drop your head and breathe. And you can feel the pelvis and your lower back receiving the breath. And then you bring yourself to the center and stretch your legs out in front, and you can shake them out again. And then we'll try sitting forward bend. So with legs, feet around hip width apart. Inhale deeply, exhale, and drop forward. And feel as you inhale and exhale, the breath can go into the lower back and into your pelvis. And then we'll come up, and we're going to come to line on the floor with a block handy. If you don't have a block, you can use a fairly firm cushion. Have the feet about hip width apart. And exhale and come up, and we slide the block under the sacrum, which is the bony plate just above the tailbone. And you rest on the block. And the purpose of this posture is to lengthen the spine by drawing the pelvis away from the block, and to help release these hip flexor muscles again at the front of the thighs. When these are tight, they pull on the lower back. Inhaling deeply and exhaling, the movement of the breath also helps release the spine here and the muscles of breathing. And the psoas muscles. So deeply inhale, deeply exhale. In your own time, you can take the block away, bring your spine and pelvis back to the floor. You can see about drawing your knees back to your chest. It's one of the postures we did at the very beginning of this practice. And then you can lie back and rest in Shavasana and relaxation for a few minutes. I'll get up though, so you can stay lying down for a little moment. And there's a very good book. I've been going through some of my meditation books during this time. And The Sun, My Heart by Thich Nhat Hanh is excellent. And I feel like I'm beginning to learn meditation all over again. Certainly being drawn to this practice in a new way. Beginning meditators usually think that we must suppress all thoughts and feelings in order to create conditions favorable to concentration and understanding. They use methods such as focusing their attention on an object or counting their breaths to try to block out our thoughts and feelings. Concentrating on an object and counting the breaths are excellent methods, but they should not be used for suppression or repression. We know that as soon as that there is repression, there is rebellion. Repression brings about rebellion. True mind and false mind are one. Denying one is denying the other. Suppressing one is suppressing the other. Our mind is our self. We cannot suppress it. We must treat it with respect and with gentleness, and absolutely without violence. Since we do not even know what our self is, how can we know if it is true or false, and whether or what to suppress? The only thing we can do is to let the sunlight of awareness shine on ourselves and enlighten it so that we can look at it directly. And then there's another passage called Darkness Becomes Light. Observe the changes that take place in your mind under the light of awareness. Even your breathing has changed and become not two. I do not want to say one, with your observing self. This is also true of your thoughts and feelings, which together with their efforts are suddenly transformed. When you do not try to judge or suppress them, they become intertwined with the observing mind. From time to time, you may become restless, and the restlessness will not go away. At such times, just sit quietly, follow your breathing, follow a half smile, and shine your awareness on the restlessness. Do not judge it or destroy it, because this restlessness is you yourself. It is born, it has some period of existence, and fades away quite naturally. Do not be in too big of a hurry to find its source. Do not try too hard to make it disappear. Just illuminate the restlessness. You will see that little by little it will change, merge, and become connected with you, the observer. Any psychological state that you subject to this illumination will eventually soften and acquire the same nature as the observing mind. Throughout your meditation, keep the sun of your awareness shining, and like the physical sun, which lights every leaf and every blade of grass, our awareness lights our every thought and feeling, allowing us to recognize them, to be aware of their birth, duration, dissolution, without judging or evaluating, welcoming or banishing them. It is important that you do not consider your awareness to be your ally, called on to suppress the enemies that are your unruly thoughts. Do not turn your mind into a battlefield. Do not have a war there. For all your feelings, joy, sorrow, anger, and hatred, are part of yourself. So thank you for this time, and namaste. And thank you, Yogi Betty. Namaste.